Super Mario 64 is a creepy game, and you know, when I was a kid playing this game, that's not really how I thought of it. Sure, there were moments that did feel weird and left me feeling nervous. There was nothing that kept me from playing the game, like how Ocarina of Time's Wallmaster in the Forest Temple downright prevented me from finishing the temple because I was so terrified by the thought of confronting that undead hand. Well, as I got older, and I don't know what it is, there are certain things about this game that felt weirder, and the stuff that I previously thought was already weird as a kid felt even more creepy. Then there's the internet and the numerous theories and the iceberg that exists for the game, which only amplified that sense of creepiness, not to mention the very popular rumor and claim of people having personalized copies of the game, where an artificial intelligence mechanism within the game cartridge can actually alter your game progression and experience. Yeah, the internet doesn't help matters, because if you have feelings or emotions towards something, chances are reading about it will only plunge you deeper into the depths of those feelings or emotions. The internet is weird like that, and in a way, the internet has really given Super Mario 64 a new lease on life. Perhaps an alternate identity of sorts? I mean, is Super Mario 64 really this creepy as fuck, conspiracy-driven experience that the internet claims it to be? And then you have the internet's recent fascination with liminal spaces, and if you asked me a year ago what a liminal space was, I would have told you tight. What is a liminal space? Well, not to bore the shit out of you with a lecture, but this article on BetterHelp.com kind of sums it up nicely. They are transitional or transformative spaces. They are the waiting areas between one point in time and space and the next. Basically, it has a lot to do with moving from one space to another and not knowing what to expect, and it kind of plays into claustrophobia as well. Dear Lord, this sounds like a psychology lesson, and it's definitely not one, but that's some necessary background for some of the things we're going to talk about here today. So let's dig in here. What is so disturbingly creepy about Super Mario 64? So let's talk about the castle grounds first. Well, yeah, this might surprise you, but have you ever really thought about the outside of Peach's castle? Have you really looked at it, ran around in it? Of course you have, right? Well, did you ever notice how you're basically boxed in? If you try to run up these sloped hills, you'll just slide right back down. You can swim a little in the ocean, but you'll look out and see some distant mountains. Doesn't this all seem rather remote? Like, are we on an island here? There's no escape. You're basically trapped here, and that's probably the reason Mario had to use a pipe to get here to begin with. There's no way out of here, and you can chalk that up to the hardware limitations, and perhaps that's what makes Super Mario 64 so unique and gives it that creepiness vibe. It's the hardware limitations that make things look weird and questionable. Perhaps that's why newer Mario titles that would follow did not contain a lot of the crazy ass stuff here we're talking about today. Aside from that, there's no music. There's dead silence, with only the sound of bird chirps. It's serene on one side of the coin, but also unsettling at the same time. It's quiet, too quiet. It's almost too serene, almost dreamlike. When we enter the castle, we're greeted by the unsettling laugh of Bowser, as he has informed us that the castle's residents have been trapped within the castle's walls. Which I discussed in my Super Mario 64 retrospective on this channel, and I talked about how this premise is creepy as hell when you think about it. People being trapped, immobilized within a fucking wall. It does harken back to the original Super Mario Bros. Plot, which goes often overlooked, in which Bowser used his magic to turn the Mushroom Kingdom's residents into bricks. And I know that this point is somewhat debated. Some people don't think they mean this in the literal sense, but you could quite clearly see at the end of the game that Peach is trapped within the castle's walls, quite literally. So, the castle is completely abandoned due to Bowser's plot, aside from the toads that inhabit it, but you still feel alone. Aren't these guys supposed to be trapped anyway? I never really understood this. They do talk to Mario, but they really don't provide the proper company. Plus, the castle is a weird place. These checkered floors make me think of Alice in Wonderland, the weirdly shaped rooms, and the general lack of anything you'd really expect in a castle. No kitchen, no dining hall, no bathroom. Nothing, just rooms full of paintings and other weird stuff. Like, people actually live here? Is this even the real castle of Princess Peach, or is it a magically renovated version courtesy of Bowser? But if so, why does it have such a lively look to it? Wouldn't he also change the exterior design of Princess Peach to that of his own likeness? So let's take a bit of a tour in this crazy funhouse of creepiness. This mirror room, which always makes me feel a bit off, especially this being the only time you actually see Lakitu following Mario, who is the game's cameraman, but seeing him lurking there just seems strange, like you're seeing something you're not supposed to be seeing, even though you'd think the mirror would be a portal of some sort to access a level, because though not a painting, Dire Dire Docks wasn't either, and that is a full-fledged level that is entered with the use of a portal. In actuality, the mirror acts as a tool to help you access an invisible painting that is only shown in the mirror's reflection, but somehow it still feels like the mirror itself should contain a portal of its own. There's nothing there, and yet there still feels like there is. Also, what's up with this sign? It says, "Shh. Please walk quietly in the hallway." This sign freaked me out as a kid. Like, what if I didn't? Would some kind of monster come out and chase me? The sign just seemed out of place, almost threatening in a sense. The secret slide is so weird too. It's like a slide above an empty black void, and if you were to fall off into the nothingness, it just drops you back into the main hallway through the ceiling. The cheery music definitely helps alleviate some of that creepiness factor, but without it, you really have a rather imposing looking room. Come to think of it, this slide would be right at home with Big Boo's haunt. I mean, before you even slide down the slide, look at the unknown nature of it, the darkness at the start, the two lanterns on either side of the starting tunnel's wall. Wouldn't that look rather well in Big Boo's haunt? Speaking of that stage, perhaps we should discuss that next. So when you first entered the castle, you may have explored the lobby and entered one of the two wooden doors that take you to a liminal space. Yes, this actually would be a good example of one because it exists solely to either take you to the courtyard or the basement, which you need a key for. You could go down this rather lengthy corridor and go out in the courtyard where, once again, much like the castle's grounds out in the front, is devoid of music of any kind. There's nothing here, just some signs and the famous statue that also contains the much discussed El is Real 2401 inscription, which is a theory that many feel is a hint to Luigi being hidden in the game. But yeah, we're not getting into that right now. But ominous conspiracies aside, this courtyard doesn't really have a lot going for it. Is it just a random set piece? Well, come back here with 12 stars, and when you enter one of those wooden doors and look down the corridor, you will be greeted by a Big Boo. And if you weren't expecting this, especially if you visited here previously and found nothing, well, this would probably scare the shit out of you. The courtyard is now infested with boos, and this is kind of really creepy when you think about it. It was empty just a little while ago, but now it's thriving with a pretty healthy ghost population. Fighting one of the boos will result in it releasing a weird looking cage, and if you get close to it, you'll be sucked in, taking you to Big Boo's haunt. And it's by far the creepiest place in the game. Now this may sound silly to talk about because isn't it supposed to be scary? I mean, this is Super Mario 64's version of the ghost house. It is a haunted mansion after all. But man, they really went all out. I mean, first the music. It definitely sounds far more imposing and sinister than Super Mario World. I mean, Koji Kondo really turned the creepy factor up to warp factor 9 here. But stop before even going into the mansion. Listen to the wind howling and look up into the sky. That moon, those trees, that dark as hell sky, and wasn't it daytime when you got sucked in? Unsettling doesn't even begin to describe it. First, these patterns on the doors, they're eerie too and look like some kind of demonic faces. Then, if you hang a left in the lobby, you'll see a grand piano sitting in the corner. As you approach it, the fucking thing jumps to life with massive jagged teeth. Holy shit, as a kid, this was it for me. This was the biggest terror to me. This thing was the ultimate set piece, the creme de la creme of jump scares. You'll find similar jaw-bearing books that come flying off bookshelves, and if you accidentally fall in certain rooms, you'll find yourself in a spooky flooded basement with a carnival-like tune playing. All I can say is, can you imagine exploring somewhere in a desolate area in real life and you heard this happy but oddly sinister sounding tune? Turns out there is a merry-go-round down here, and this tune is actually playing in the game. Like, the music is actually being played by some unseen speakers, because how else do you explain it getting louder as you enter the actual merry-go-round room? Plus, once you gain access to the second floor, you'll discover a series of caskets? Yeah, that's right, there's actually caskets in a Mario game. And considering these are boos, and they're not really supposed to be dead people's spirits. They're supposed to be just a ghost species as far as we've been told. So who's the caskets for? But anyway, while we're on the topic of enemies, what's the deal with these thwomps in Thwomp's Fortress? I mean, these guys look normal, right? Yeah. They do look different than how they appeared in previous games, no longer having any spikes, but they seem normal looking enough. But then you have these guys with arms and legs and their faces. Oh dear lord, their faces are mangled and disfigured, and even though all the enemies in the game have static expressions, this is one enemy where the hardware limitations really make this enemy look especially horrifying. Now, this one is a classic. Unagi the eel from Jolly Roger Bay. When going for the first star of the level, you will dive deep into the bay and come upon a sunken ship. And as you get closer, you'll notice a weird spooky face is occupying an opening in the ship. I mean, look at his fucking face. Unagi looks like a crazed, psychopathic lunatic. Not something you'd expect from an eel, and not really the most common expression for most Mario enemies. Well, not this crazed anyway. Weirdly enough, he will not move at all, but if you swim to the surface and back down again, Unagi is now out and about, and we see he is a massive eel. Later on, he will take up residence in a tunnel surrounded with algae in what we can assume is his home. Get too close and he'll lunge out with a creepy ass growl and open his jaws to an alarmingly wide degree. Holy hell, Unagi is just a terrifying aquatic horror to behold. And on the Super Mario 64 Iceberg, there is the mention of the Unagi Tunnel, which references the numerous accounts of gamers claiming they entered into his tunnel to find numerous Unagis. I mean, Jesus Christ, can you imagine there being more than one of these things? Now, let's shift focus to another location in the game, Hazy Maze Cave. And while this is not the most creepy place overall, there is one section that horrified me as a kid, and that was falling down into the toxic maze and choking to death on the toxic gas inhabiting the maze. Mario's eyes turn to X's and he collapses on his dying breath. I mean, shit. Isn't this a bit too realistic for a Mario game? I mean, you always died, but it was kind of just a losing a one-up kind of thing, and the death itself was not gruesome at all, even if you were crushed. Here, you're actually dying on screen in a pretty gruesome fashion. Also, you may have not even noticed this because there's really no reason to do so, but if you stand completely still in the toxic maze, Mario coughs. And why would you stand still? It's a fucking toxic maze after all. I never thought increased realism in a game could be this terrifying. Oh my. And how about the endless stairs? So once you reach the 3rd floor of the castle, you'll see a star door that, despite not having the required amount of 70 stars to enter, actually lets you enter anyway. What's that about endless stairs though? Oh, never mind that. Wow, how sporting of Bowser to bend the rules for us and let us have access despite falling short of the requirement. So I'll just make my way up the stairs and... what the hell? What's going on here? These stairs are just repeating themselves in an endless loop, and that music is freaking me out. What the hell is going on here? Yeah, the endless stairs, the punishment for not having 70 stars. It's kind of funny that this serves no real purpose because the other 2 star doors in the game just simply won't let you in, but this one purposely lets you in to trick you, and it's basically just for flavor, just a little extra something to add to the magical nature of the game. But yeah, with this music and everything, it's kind of apparent they wanted to freak you out. Now, interestingly enough, no one mentioned this in any of the videos I've seen talking about the creepiness of the game here on YouTube, but part of the creepiness of the Endless Stairs song playing is that it's layered over the castle's regular music, and the instruments that can be heard underneath the Endless Stairs theme makes for a really weird, anxiety-inducing and foreboding sounding theme. It really needs to be listened in-game to really fully appreciate it, not just the track by itself. Well, there's no use in avoiding it any further, but truthfully, I saved this one toward the end of my video because it's undoubtedly the most popular due to the Super Mario 64 Iceberg. And that's Wet Dry World, and the tagline used to describe it, negative emotional aura. You know, as a kid, I never really gave this level much thought, and I think that's what most people who grew up with this game echo. It's actually a rather lackluster level, really. There is an interesting mechanic of raising the water level, and even the fact that you can control the water level simply by jumping into the painting at certain points. But the level looks like a weird prototype, doesn't it? Unlike all the other stages, Bomb, Battlefield, Thwomp's Fortress, Big Boo's Haunt, Hazy Maze Cave, all of them have some sort of theme going on in each of them, giving them their own identity. Well, what's this one's identity? The water stage? I mean, we've already got 2 others that fit that description, and they both are better designed. Jolly Roger Bay and Dar Dar Docks. Their names even indicate their set pieces. Well, just what is a wet dry world? Well, for a world, it definitely feel small, claustrophobic. You're really boxed in here, and there's just bland looking platforms. Even those that are floating, like this cylinder up in the sky. Like, what is this place? Using your free looking camera option, you can observe a strange skybox design that looks very photographic in nature. A city? Yeah, it's Shabam, Yemen, but underwater? Or at least it appears to be. But you know, when I actually look at it, I'm not sure if that's just the sky or it is water. People think that it's water, mostly due to the town you will later discover by swimming underwater in the actual level itself. But whatever the case may be, it's just so odd to see this real image being used as a skybox on what is a pretty unrealistic fantasy game. Now, once you go visit the underwater town, you'll see that it is indeed underwater and that it is completely abandoned. Is this the same town that is in the skybox, supposedly? It's really bizarre, and the fact that it would be pointed out online that these buildings used for this town are actually unused assets from the Zelda 64 beta, tossed away and recycled without anyone really noticing at the time, with the lack of internet information available at the time, forgotten about, just like this town. Yeah, this place really is an anomaly, and you feel off when being here. Kind of like this place was not even supposed to be found. And you know, the weird thing is, no one from the development team ever talks about this kind of thing. Where are the supposed video game journalists to ask the hard-hitting, burning questions we want to know about skyboxes and all this weird, creepy shit in this game? I do find it weird because it's not like Super Mario 64 is some kind of hidden gem made by some now defunct third-party developer that was only released once inside of Japan for some obscure console. It's one of the most popular video games of all time. Also of note, look at the painting for the level. It features the spider-like Skeeter. And you can see this on his in-game model as well. Doesn't he look kind of depressed? The hanging red eyes? Is this the negative emotional aura being reflected upon this enemy? I just found this painting and how this enemy looks to be rather unsettling. And just one more thing before we move on from Wet Dry World. This sign right here that says the city welcomes those with the depth they bring as they enter. Now this refers to the water level gimmick, but it kind of is cool to think of it as a double meaning from a psychological standpoint, like the mental depth. How deep are you thinking about this game? Is the negative emotional aura getting to you? How deep does this aura reflect upon you? Well, I'm kind of creeping myself out here, so let's move on. So one last point before we're done here for today, and that's the end of the game. So Bowser is defeated, Peach is saved, and you think you're out of the woods with the creepiness, right? No sir, because what in the actual fuck is with this end screen image? First off, it looks beyond weird. The cake on the table just looks odd, like they're going for a more photorealistic approach here, but perhaps too real. Also, why is the room so dark? This isn't a surprise party. Peach specifically tells Mario he's getting a cake, and more importantly, what is with that fucking face in the background? Is that Yoshi? If it is, why does it look so creepified? I mean, did the guys at Nintendo and Shigeru Miyamoto really look at this end screen and not find it to be the single least bit disturbing or strange? I mean, this is a kid's game, right? And the mad pianos, toxic gas, and man-eating eels are far behind us, right? Right? Yeah, this image is all kinds of messed up and surely a perfect way to cap off this equally strange game. In fact, the image doesn't even fade away, it just lingers there with that weird ass Yoshi face staring deep into your soul. until you reset the game. So there you go, guys, and hopefully you see my point of why Super Mario 64 is a truly weird, strange, creepy, and sometimes horrifying game. And really, I'm happy it is. It's definitely one of the most unique Mario games, and it has the same kind of feel to it as Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins, in that it feels like a Mario game, but at the same time, it feels so much different than the rest of the series. If anything, the creepy factor and all the internet related stuff such as personalized copies and the Iceberg are a real testament to just how amazing and legendary this game is. Talk about a legacy. So, please subscribe if you haven't already, guys. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. If you hated it, then hit the dislike button. Leave a comment down below because I'd really like to discuss anybody who shares the same feelings as I do about Super Mario 64. What are some of your favorite creepy moments? Do you have one of these personalized copies that's always talked about online? What are your views on the Super Mario 64 Iceberg? And I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And I'll see you next time, guys.